So far, it had been a busy morning. Orbie realized that if you line up 30 toy cars, they stretch right across the living room. Katie discovered that when you paint yellow on top of blue, it turns green. And they both found out that if you stick orange slices in jelly dessert before it gels, they all sink to the bottom. Now, Orbie was flying his paper airplane from upstairs to down. Katie was playing on the stairs with her slinky. Each time Orbie ran down to get his plane, he bumped the slinky and knocked it over. This was really starting to bug Katie. Now, she did ask him very nicely to please be careful, and she did ask him if he could use the other side of the stairs to go up and down on, but for some reason, Orbie didn't listen. After a while, Katie had taken all she could. She stood right in Orbie's way and said, "Oh, no, you don't. Stop right there, Orbie. You're ruining my game, and that is not a very nice thing to do." Of course, Orbie was very surprised and looked at her in astonishment, but then he just pushed his way past her. Dad came out from the kitchen and asked, what would make two best friends talk to each other like that? Katie told her story, and then right in the middle, Orbie sputtered and started to cry. Katie just looked at him, but Dad moved up the stairs and held him in a big hug. "What's the matter?" Dad asked as he wiped Orbie's tears. Orbie shuddered, and his spots started to flash a kind of green color. "What was that?" Dad said. Orbie just looked very sad. Katie was watching from down at the bottom of the stairs. She told her dad that Orbie had been stepping on her slinky and wouldn't stop. Katie was very angry with Orbie. She should be the one crying. Dad told Katie, "Not now." And Katie picked up her things and ran into the living room. Dad was very worried about Orbie. He seemed to have a strange color around his eyes and wobbled like he was dizzy, and whose spots were getting greener and greener. Dad picked him up and took him to his hanger in Katie's closet. He tried to help Orbie get on the hanger, but do you know that Orbie was feeling so strange that he couldn't hold on? Something was very wrong. Dad put him in Katie's bed and pulled the covers up. Mom came into the room and asked what happened between Katie and Orbie. She just took one look at Orbie and knew that he was sick. Orbie still looked very sad. Mom hurried down to see if Dr. Hewitt could help. She found Katie sitting on the floor in the kitchen, sniffling. She asked Katie if she was feeling all right, and Katie told her about Orbie. Mom was very surprised that two best friends couldn't find a way to get along together. And she told Katie that Orbie was feeling sick. Maybe he just couldn't listen to what she was saying. But sadly, I can tell you, Katie was still very angry. Dr. Hewitt told Mom to give Orbie lots of juice and rest, and that he should be feeling better tomorrow. Mom hung up the phone and she sat on the floor with Katie. She explained that sometimes when people don't feel well, they behave in strange ways. Mom asked Katie to try to understand that Orbie didn't intend to be mean, and that she was pretty sure he would feel bad about it. Katie decided she would wait and see. Mom said it was important to forgive people, and Katie nodded her head. I think she knew that. Mom asked Katie if she wanted to help her take the apple juice up, and Katie said no. Well, it happened that Katie decided to do her puzzle next, and it also happened that her puzzle was up in her room. She tiptoed in. Dad was leaning over Orbie, putting a cold cloth on his forehead. When Dad saw Katie, he thought she'd come to help Orbie feel better and said, "Ah, now, here she comes, the best nurse in town." Even though Katie was trying to feel angry, she did smile a bit. Orbie looked over at her with little sad eyes and green spots, and right at that moment, Katie knew how hard it was to stay angry at your best friend. She hurried over to the bed. A whimper came out of Orbie, and Katie moved up on the bed to get closer. Dad left and went to talk to Mom. Orbie made a sad little sound that meant he was sorry. Katie told him that she was very angry at him, and that Mom had explained about when people don't feel well. Orbie smiled and made a "Mom knows everything" kind of sound. "I think she does," Katie said. Then a funny thing happened. Orbie popped right up in Katie's bed and made the sound that meant, "Let's go play on the park swings." Katie looked at Orbie and, of course, was a little surprised. "You want to play on the swings?" she asked. Orbie jumped out of bed and cartwheeled across the floor. His spots were still green, but his sad face was gone. As they ran out the front door, Katie called to Mom that they were going to the park. She always told her Mom whenever she left the house. Mom just stood in the kitchen and said to Dad, "We?" Dad ran up to see if Orbie was still in bed. All he found was Katie's stuffy. Dad ran down the stairs and right out the front door. He found Katie at the slide and asked where Orbie was. Katie pointed to the swings. Orbie was hanging onto the swing, but it wasn't moving. He actually looked worse than before. His spots were darker, and his eyes were getting redder. As Dad headed for home carrying Orbie, he told him, "You can't play on the park swings when you're sick." Orbie made a very weak, "why" kind of sound. Katie didn't understand. If he felt like playing, then he must be well enough. Dad explained to Orbie and Katie, who was running to keep up, that if you get sick out in the park, there might not be anyone to help. Dad also pointed out that being outside could give him a chill and make him sicker. Orbie snuffled a bit. His body needs to rest and get better. Dad told Orbie that some of the little children who come to play in the park might catch what he's got and get sick too. Orbie felt very bad. There were lots of things to play with at home, and that was the best place for him. When they got home, Mom was very glad to see him and told him that she was very worried. Katie and Orbie felt very bad that they had worried her. I think Orbie felt even worse because he was so sick, and he started to cry. Mom thought that maybe Orbie should sleep for a while. Later, he and his best friend did the puzzle, and Dad read the silliest story. Orbie fell asleep right in the middle of it. He dreamt of playing with Katie on the park swings. They were laughing and swinging as high as they could go. And you know what? In 2 days, his dream came true.
Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? If you mix blue paint and yellow paint, it makes green. And if you mix red paint and yellow paint, it makes orange. And if you mix blue paint and red paint, it makes purple. But don't mix it with your clothes. That makes them red.